Top 5 Mysterious Disappearances of All Time. Flight MH370. Malaysian Airlines Flight MH370 took off from Kuala Lumpur and was heading to Beijing with 239 people on board. At 1:07 am on March 8, 2014, Flight MH370 lost contact with the nearest air traffic control. Satellite pings from the aircraft suggest that it continued flying for around 7 hours when the fuel would have run out. Experts calculated the most likely crash site around 1,000 miles west of Perth, Australia. A $150 million search was conducted by Australia, China and Malaysia, which resulted in no trace of the plane or its wreckage. The crew of MH370 was experienced. The captain, Zahir Ahmad Shah, was with Malaysian Airlines since 1981, and the co-pilot, Farik Abdul Hamid, had 2,763 hours experience of flying. There are many theories about MH370, and some of them are pretty disturbing. There is a suicide theory, as per which the captain deliberately ditched the plane in the Indian Ocean. Another theory claims that the plane was hijacked and flown to a hideout because many relatives were able to hear a ringing tone for up to 4 days whenever they called their loved ones who were on the plane after the disappearance. Some say it was accidentally shot down by US Thai jet fighters in a military exercise. The search was officially called off in January 2017, almost 3 years after the disappearance, and the fate of this aircraft, along with 239 passengers on board, is still unknown. The Fannon Island Mystery. Fannon Island is named after Saint Fannon, a 6th century Irish bishop who later became a saint. He built a chapel on the island, and for centuries, shepherds used to bring over sheep to the island to graze, but would never stay at night, fearful of the spirits believed to haunt that remote island. On 26 December 1900, a small ship was making its way to the Fannon Islands, in the remote Outer Hebrides. Its destination was the lighthouse at Ilian Moor, a remote island which, apart from its lighthouse keepers, was completely uninhabited. Captain James Harvey was in charge of the ship, which was also carrying Joseph Moore, a replacement lighthouse keeper. As the ship reached the landing platform, Captain Harvey was surprised not to see anyone waiting for their arrival. He blew his horn and set up a warning flare to attract attention. However, there was no response. Joseph Moore then rowed ashore and ascended up the steep set of stairs that led up to the lighthouse. According to the reports from Moore himself, the replacement lighthouse keeper suffered an overwhelming sense of foreboding on his long walk up to the top of the cliff. Once at the lighthouse, Moore noticed something was immediately wrong. The door to the lighthouse was unlocked, and in the entrance hall, 2 of the 3 oilskin coats were missing. Moore continued onto the kitchen area, where he found half-eaten food and an overturned chair, almost if someone had jumped from their seat in a hurry. To add to this peculiar scene, the kitchen clock had also stopped. Moore continued to search the rest of the lighthouse, but found no signs of the lighthouse keepers. He ran back to the ship to inform Captain Harvey, who ordered a search of the islands for the missing men. No one was found. Harvey quickly sent back a telegram to the mainland, which in turn was forwarded to the Northern Lighthouse Board headquarters in Edinburgh. The telegraph read, "A dreadful accident has happened at Flannels. The 3 keepers, Duckett, Marshall and MacArthur, have disappeared from the island." A few days later, Robert Muirhead, the board's official, who both recruited and knew all the men personally, departed for the island to investigate the disappearance. His investigation of the lighthouse found nothing over and above what Moore had already reported, that is, except for the lighthouse log. Muir had immediately noticed that the last few days of entries were unusual. On 12th December, Thomas Marshall, the second assistant, wrote of severe winds, the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years. He also noticed that James Ducat, the principal keeper, had been very quiet, and the third assistant, William MacArthur, had been crying. What is strange about the final remark was that William MacArthur was a seasoned mariner and was known on the Scottish mainland as a tough brawler. Why would he be crying about a storm? Log entries on the 30th of December stated that the storm was still raging and all the three men had been praying. But why would three experienced lighthouse keepers, safely situated on a brand new lighthouse that was 150 feet above sea level, be praying for a storm to stop? They should have been perfectly safe. Even more peculiar is that there were no reported storms in the area on 12, 13 and 14 December. In fact, the weather was calm. The final entry was made on 15th of December. It simply read, "Storm ended, sea calm. God is over all." What was meant by God is over all? After reading the logs, Muirhead's attention turned to the remaining oilskin coat that had been left in the entrance hall. Why in the bitter cold winter had one of the lighthouse keepers ventured out without his coat? Further clues were found down by the landing platform. Ropes which were usually held in a brown crate 70 feet above the platform on a supply crane. Perhaps the crate had been dislodged and knocked down, and the lighthouse keepers were attempting to retrieve them when an unexpected wave came and washed them out to the sea. This was the first and the most likely theory which Muir had included in his final report. But this official report raised a number of questions. Why had none of the bodies been washed ashore? Why had one of the men left the lighthouse without taking his coat, especially since this was December in the Outer Hebrides? Why had three experienced lighthouse keepers been taken unaware by a wave? Although these were all good questions, the most pertinent and persistent question was around the weather conditions at the time. The seas should have been calm. They were sure of this, as the lighthouse could have been seen from the mainland, and any bad weather would have obscured it from view. Over the following decades, lighthouse keepers at Elaine Moor have reported voices in the wind, calling out the names of the three dead men. Theories about their disappearance have ranged from foreign invaders capturing the men, all the way through to alien abduction. Whatever the reason for their disappearance might be, something or someone snatched those three men from the rock of Elaine Moor on that winter's day over 100 years ago. Cars 2. On the 18th April 2007, the crew of a surveillance helicopter spotted a small ship drifting in the sea almost 100 miles off the coast of Queensland, Australia, in the area of the Great Barrier Reef. They observed that the 9.8-meter ship was in some damage as the sails looked to be badly shredded. Once they boarded the craft, they were to find strange circumstances on the vessel. It looked as everything was set up for a meal, with food and utensils set out on the table. The engine was still running, and computers and a laptop were also set up and turned on. The anchor was up. Emergency systems on board were still functional. There had been no distress signal sent by the crew, and the boat looked to be in perfect working condition. What was not found on board were its three-man crew, 56-year-old Derek Batten, the owner and the skipper of the boat, and his two friends, 69-year-old Peter Tunstead and 63-year-old James Tunstead. All the three crew members were good friends. They had planned to travel 5,000 kilometers from Shute Harbour to Perth on Cars 2, which would take 8 weeks. A video recording shot by James Tunstead was found by investigators. It shows Peter Tunstead fishing, not wearing a life jacket. Batten is showing at the helm. The sea was a bit rough. Within the next 30 minutes, the three men were to disappear without a trace. The Queensland coroner stated in his report that the men died due to tragic accident. Peter Tunstead may have tried to free a lure that had become entangled on the ship's rudder and fell overboard. James then went to rescue his brother, and Batten was knocked overboard by sails before he got a chance to drop them. And all men were unable to make it to the boat that was speeding away. However, many local yachtsmen and family members do not believe this theory. Will we ever know what exactly happened to these three men? It is unlikely, but what is for sure is that the story of these three men and their disappearance will continue to be told. What do you think happened to these sailors? Do let me know in the comments box. Mary Celeste. On December 4th, 1872, the ghost ship Mary Celeste was discovered sailing near the Azores Island, unharmed with her cargo intact, but without any crew. The abandonment of the Mary Celeste and the fate of her crew remains one of the history's greatest maritime mysteries. The Mary Celeste had left New York City about a month earlier. The ship carried a cargo of industrial alcohol and was headed to Genoa, Italy. A crew of 8, plus the captain's wife and son, were on board. A British vessel spotted the Mary Celeste sailing erratically and investigated. They found the cargo mostly intact, instruments working, and all the crew and passengers' valuable items still secure. The weather was good. The only unusual element were one missing lifeboat, several broken barrels of alcohol, and a frayed rope trailing behind the ship. There are many theories surrounding the mystery of the Mary Celeste, ranging from pirates to mutiny. One of the strongest theories is that the insecure barrels of alcohol broke and the fumes created sparks that startled the crew. Thinking the ship may explode, the crew and passengers of Mary Celeste boarded the lifeboat tied to the larger ship. A storm may have hit afterwards. While the larger vessel, Mary Celeste, survived the storm, the tiny lifeboat capsized and all the passengers drowned. No trace of the lifeboat or any survivors of Mary Celeste has ever been found. Roanoke, the lost colony. In 1500s, an Englishman, John White, brought 100 settlers to Roanoke Island, current-day North Carolina, and he went back to his home country England to gather food and supplies. 3 years later he returned to Roanoke Island after being delayed by weather and war with Spain, and found that the entire settlement had completely disappeared. White found no trace of his settlers other than a word carved into the tree, Croatian. It was assumed to represent Croatian Island, so he tried to reach the Croatian Island, but was forced to abandon the trip because of a storm. There is no real concrete evidence to this date that what happened to that colony, where did the 100 people go, and why didn't they leave any clue. So that's pretty much it for this week. Thanks for watching this video. Please like, share and subscribe my channel. Until next week, thank you and goodbye.